Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to the elders both past and present. I'm Ali Daddo.
I'm Cam Daddo. We've been blessed to have a number of Masterchefs
We have.
in the bathroom with us.
Yes.
What a juggernaut of a show that is.
Mm-hmm.
Launching a bunch of careers.
Yes.
Indeed. So today we have the very first winner, the one who started it all.
I know, the lovely Julie Goodwin. She burst onto the scene as Australia's first MasterChef in 2008. She's a mum, and lucky her, she's a grandmum as well. Obviously, she's a wife, of course, a cook, an author, a singer. I did not know she was a singer. A public speaker. Julie Goodwin is the epitome of a busy Australian lady.
She's not travelling the world alone. She has longtime partner Mick beside her. They've had a long and, I dare say, adventurous life together. Let's get to know Julie and Mick Goodwin.
All right, you two, we are a relationship podcast and we just love to hear a little bit more about the two of you. So if you can fill us in, how did you two meet?
You're going to talk first?
So Jules and I met, we're going back to 1989.
Yep.
And
It's the year we met, Cam.
It is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go. We met through a St. Vincent de Paul youth group. So one of my mates, he was a school captain of my high school, St. Leo's College at Wahroonga.
Yep.
We started this Vinnie's group in high school, years 11 and 12. And then when school finished, he decided that he wanted to keep it rolling. He knew Julie because Julie was the school captain of her school, Hornsby Girls High.
Ah.
Wow,
so
that's
he
impressive.
invited her, invited her along to join this group. That's how we met.
School captain, Julie.
Yeah.
Was that
Those
voted,
are the days. I think it was hip to be square back then, and I was pretty square. So,
Now, was that voted on by the teachers or the students?
Students voted for all the prefects, and then I think the prefects voted for who they wanted for the captain.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So head prefect, it was called at Hornsby Girls High School.
Yeah.
Head
I
prefect, darling.
was a St Ives High girl. We were kind of almost mixing in the same circles.
Well, kind of. I think your St Ives circles might have been slightly more rarefied than the Hornsby circles.
It's not normally put that way. Private school and public school people normally go, private school, Oh,
Yeah, well,
yes.
we were known as Snives back then, and
Snives.
it's come a long way, that school. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean Hornsby has too. It's selective now, but it
Is that
certainly
right?
wasn't back then.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Good to
so
know.
you met back then. You were school captain, so you were around year 12. Then were you hanging out for those years, and then you got married like a few years on from that?
Yeah, many years on, Cam. Gosh, he's slow on the uptake, this one. But, we're just out of high school. So, we were 18 when we met, and we were 19 by the time he figured that out, that I liked him. And then it was another, nearly 6 years till we got married.
Wow.
Because, I'm a patient. I've got the patience of a saint.
You do.
Slow and steady wins the race.
That's
There you go.
true.
Like-
That's
what my
true,
dad
Vic.
told me.
Like a slow cooker, hey?
I'll go
God.
slow something.
It's another cooking pun. There could be more to follow.
There could
Look
be.
out.
I haven't scripted any of these. They're just flying off the top of my head.
They're just rolling out.
I'm just impressing myself here. I'm
Well done.
I'm self-basting here.
Oh, no.
Oh,
It's
no.
too much. So,
Too much.
Mick,
Agreed.
did you know from the get-go that Julie was the one, and were you sort of like, this is it, this is my gal for the rest of my life?
Yeah, definitely.
What was it
Definitely.
about
You just
her?
didn't tell me.
What was it about Julie that you love? Or loved her and still love, I'm sure.
Yeah, do you know what? I probably didn't realise it back then, but it was her intelligence and her strength, I guess.
And Julie, for you, what was it about Mick that you loved?
Oh, where do I start? He had a wicked mullet. And
it's come back again. How about that?
Yes, all the footy players have got him.
I know. No, he was just very funny. So, yeah, I had a lot of laughs with him and we got on really well. So, yeah, we were friends, like, right off the bat. But also I learned, over time that he was extremely principled. I knew because I'd met him through a St Vincent de Paul group. Well, these group of boys were doing amazing charity work, just going out on their weekends, going down to sort of Sydney and taking out a bus from Matt Talbot Hostel and taking coffee around to King's Cross and Central Station and giving it to homeless people and stuff. So I knew that he had a really good heart and just his principles came through to me. And, yeah, I just... he was hot as well, which never hurts. And, I fell madly in love with him.
Oh,
as you would with a mullet.
Yeah.
I'm only human.
Kind-hearted and a mullet. What a combo.
Would you do the mullet again, Mick? Would you mullet up again, Mick? Or do you have one now?
I won't do it again. I won't do it again.
He could. He's still got a beautiful head of hair. But that's all right. We've got boys in their 20s and one of them has certainly taken up the mullet challenge on occasion. So,
And, Julie, were you a cook back then? When did the cooking passion hit for you?
It hit for me, as a young adult. I loved eating all my life, but back then, it was part of how I connected with Mick. We'd go on these dates and I would cook or I'd make a picnic or whatever and I'd make the food as nice as I could and it just seemed to be a way to his heart and so I continued that. And then when I got my own house, my own kitchen to mess up, I went kind of wild. We didn't have very much money, so if we were going to eat nice food, I had to figure out how to cook nice food. And so that became a pursuit of mine, was because I like eating nice food and I like feeding nice food to people. So I had to figure out how to do that on a shoestring.
And were you working as well, or how was that going? And
when we first met, I was at uni, at Sydney Uni, and I was there until sort of midway through 1990 when I left. I couldn't stay there anymore. I was going through some stuff that I didn't even realise I was going through until recently. And then I went and got a job at Village Roadshow. I worked in an office for a little while and that didn't suit me temperamentally to be in an office. And I went from there, I went into youth work. And I ended up doing retreats and workshops with this lady. I actually went all over the world as her backing vocalist at one point. And worked in high schools with high school kids. And that's what I was doing when we got married.
Amazing. That must have been a fantastic job.
It really was. It didn't pay very much, but it was, in terms of, job satisfaction, it was pretty amazing. Yeah. I got to work with these groups of first of all primary school kids, but it moved on to being high school kids. And I mean, that's a very challenging thing to do. Yeah. And but I loved it, but it wasn't really conducive to sort of starting a family and all of that, because I was travelling more than 6 months of every year. So once we got married, I quit that, and shortly thereafter we started having little Goodwins.
Right, and you've got 3 little Goodwins who are now lumpy Goodwins.
They're giant.
Yeah, 3 giants.
They were all taller than me by the time they were in 6th grade, all 3 of them.
Wow.
So I've got giant Goodwins, and we've actually got a little Goodwin too, because we've got a little granddaughter.
Oh, I know.
Congratulations.
I've heard. That's so exciting.
She's divine. It's lovely.
It is the best. It is the best.
Well, Mick, you're quite tall, aren't you?
Yeah, 6'7".
Oh, geez.
And two out of our 3 sons are 6'6".
Yeah.
So
the shorty's only 6 foot.
Yeah. The run to the litter, we say, stopped at 6 foot.
Julie, were they big babies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they were. And thank you, Ali, because I have not received enough sympathy for that over the last 29 years.
You've come to the right place, Julie Goodwin.
Oh, my God. I can't. 3, well, boys are normally bigger anyway, and then if you've got a 6'7" dad, you know that you're in for some big chunkies.
He's got a giant head too.
Yeah, big head. I say. Big head.
Did you have big babies too, Ali?
Our son was pretty big, actually. Certainly compared to the girls were average size, and our son was when he came out. The the words that Cam said went, Jesus, he's a monster. Like in a good way. In a good way. But I always
of course, in a good way.
River was so well fed. I mean,
Yeah.
he waited until that placenta was absolutely sucked dry and calcified.
It
was
was.
so old when it came out. It was like he came out looking for food, that kid.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
2
my
weeks
God.
overdue. Yeah, placenta was as grey and old as anything because it was he was overcooked.
That's so funny because
Yeah.
my youngest was 2 weeks overdue. 15 days it turned out to be. Still had to be induced, and I reckon
Right.
I'd be wheeling my belly around in a wheelbarrow if he had a choice.
Well, I think about
still be there.
Julie, I think about that and go, well, you're surrounded by amniotic fluid. It's pretty comfy. You got a permanent hose into you with food. It's warm. You've got a mama. You can hear her voice. She's singing to you. All
Why
that
would you
stuff.
come
And
out?
What a lovely
Why
place to
would you?
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon.
So you're 3 boys and you're a good cook. Boy, they must love mum. Do they come home for... Have you got all 3 at home? No, you can't have all 3 at home because you've got a grandkid, so...
Well, the middle one with the grandchild has moved out. He's a
Yes.
few minutes away from home. Yeah, like he was there last night for dinner, and the other 2 are still at home. So, yeah.
Why would you leave that kind of food, basically?
Well, that's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan.
Oh, well done,
Our
Grandma.
youngest moved out for a little while.
Yeah.
For probably just over a year. And
It's terrible.
yeah, we really missed him.
Yeah.
We really
Yeah.
missed him.
I
They're my
hear
favourite
that.
people, so I really love it when they're around. And, you know, I keep telling them I'm in no hurry. We're in no hurry for them to go anywhere. You know, stay here, save up until you've, you know, got a deposit, like a really big deposit to
Yeah.
stay.
That's
And,
exactly exactly what I told our kids. I had no issue with them staying. I said, if you need to bring your husbands and wives, like just bring them over. Like that's okay. We'll make a compound.
Yeah, I call it adopting the European model.
It's good.
Let's just all live together.
right, and they live forever that way. It's the part of the blue zone theory that the families stay together.
Mick,
Love
are you in there as well with this? Are you on board?
Definitely. The house we're living in at the moment, we built it when our eldest was just starting high school. And so what we wanted was for them to all have their own rooms, but to also have a separate living area so
Yeah.
that when they wanted to have their mates around, they wouldn't have to sit around with adults.
Yep.
So it was a real purposeful thing that we're going to build this place, make it cool for their friends to hang around. They have their privacy so that we could sort of, I don't know, just
Keep them close.
Keep them
Yeah,
close.
nice.
Yes.
Keep them close. And do you know what? In the blink of an eye, that stage of their life was just over. They'd finished high school. They had good mates. And, yeah, so it all just went by so quickly, you know.
Yeah,
So-
it would feel wrong for them to move out now. It's like, but we built this house.
Yeah. Come back. Our brand new 14-year-old home.
That's right.
Would you do anything different in terms of parenting them, those boys?
Look, there's always things that you can look back at and pick apart.
Yeah.
I do have a regret. We were sitting around as adults, maybe
Oh,
only
my
a year
God.
ago, talking about childhood stuff.
You sure you
And-
want to tell this
And
story?
Paddy, my youngest, and my middle son told me that they carried this trauma. Paddy, when he was about 7 years old, he always had a ball and he was always kicking it. And so he's kicking this soccer ball in the house up against one of the walls. And it was driving me crazy. And I told him to stop doing it about 20 times. And on the 21st time, I said, Paddy, if you don't stop, I'm going to take you down to Coles and give you away to another family. And he thought I was serious, but his older brother Tom thought I was as well. He started getting all upset because he didn't want a life without his little brother. And I only found this out a year ago that I'd traumatised 2 of my sons because I was going to give one away.
Yeah,
'cause he
they
was
still
kicking-
cry themselves to sleep over it.
And I felt really bad about it because it was literally I was frustrated.
Sure.
And I thought, what's an extreme thing that I can say to him to
Make him stop kicking a
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah. And that's what I came up with, not realising that he literally thought I was done with him.
You do
a
say
shocker,
things
I
like that
know.
in the heat of the moment when you're taken to that kind of level of frustration. It's like, I remember Cam's mum threatening to chop our youngest child's head off at one point.
She's French.
Yes, Bronwyn guillotine. Dad.
And it was like it went dead air for like about half a second, and then we all burst out laughing, actually, which broke the air. But I remember her saying, "I'm going to chop your head off." I was like, okay.
You know, and it also happened right at the moment, like probably a couple of days after we'd been given the parental tip of never threaten your kids with something that's unrealistic.
That you can't
follow through. And there's mum just straight out of the thing. She's come over from Australia, landed in Los Angeles, 15 minutes in the car. I'll chop your head off, you miserable little bastard.
All right, Mum, you've said it, and now to teach him a lesson, we actually have to do it.
Exactly. But tell Julie and Mick about what your dad did with the boys' home, because that's taking it to a whole other level.
Yeah, I was a bit of a tearaway as a young boy. I was probably I would have been about 9 or 10, and Dad had enough. And around the corner, the next suburb from Mount Eliza was Mornington, and there was the very famous Mornington boys' home, the Sunnyside boys' home.
Oh, no.
And Dad said, he goes, "You do that again or something, I'm taking you to Sunnyside." And sure enough, I tested him and did it again. And next thing you know, he said, "Right, we're going, pack your bag." And it was on a Saturday morning. And I'm sure he had to give up his golf game or something in order to follow through with this. And he said, "Eat your cornflakes." And he said, "Put your school uniform on."
Like your last meal.
Yes.
I put my school uniform on and my black Clark's leather shoes and went there, packed my bag, and
Your mum was crying, wasn't she?
Mum was crying.
Of course
And
she
Dad
would
said,
have been.
"Come on, off you go. Get in the car." I got in the car. "Bye, kiss your mother." Kiss Mum.
my God.
And off we went.
Talk about following through.
Oh, he followed through. And we drove to the front gate of the Sunnyside Boys' Home, which was on the most amazing real estate looking over Port Phillip Bay down
And that's
there.
the main thing, I think, for all of us from this story. It's great real estate.
Great real estate, Sunnyside Boys'
that's
Home.
the
And Dad
message.
sat there and we sat at a gate, the iron gates, as much as I remember what it was. And he said, "So, are you going to do it again?" He goes, and I said, "No." And he goes, "Are you sorry?" I said, "Yes, I'm really sorry, Dad." He goes, "Okay, no footy for 3 weeks and let's go home." And I went home. "Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad." Back
And
down
how
the
long were you
Bluestone
good
driveway.
for?
3 weeks.
Probably good for 3 weeks. And then did it again. You know?
So, Mick, I hope that makes you feel better about your threat to Coles, to take you down to Coles, because this was a serious threat.
Yeah.
You're in good company anyway, but
I mean,
right.
back in those days, it was a bit more old school, you know. So
Well, it was.
Yes.
I can't even lean on that one.
Yeah, we're talking 1972, 73, and we're all wearing golden breed, and
But you
everything
know
was
what?
brown and orange.
You talk about regrets as parents, and I think that sort of the proof of the pudding's got to be in how your family is now. And
Yes.
I read somewhere recently that you've parented well when your kids still like hanging out with you, and ours won't stop.
Yeah.
No, we've got
That's
a
so
really
lovely.
beautiful relationship with all of our sons. We all talk openly. We've got, so I think that you can spend too much time worrying about regrets. I think the end result or the ongoing result is that we've got a beautiful relationship and we're all very open and honest with each other, and we love each other very much, and we tell each other that all the time.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So, how old were the boys when you won MasterChef?
They were in year 5, year 6 and year 7.
Amazing.
So they were 10, 12 and 13 at the time
Right.
that I won. And so quite young. And I was away from home for nearly 5 months to do that as
Wow.
well. So it was a massive, I didn't know when I signed up what the commitment was. I just kind of went in a bit blind, and when they told us what it was going to be, Mick and I had to have quite a conversation. It's like, I've just been told I have to live out of home to do this. And by then we were down to about 30 people out of 7,500 people. And we were competing to get into the house, and they sort of sprung it on us. Oh, if you get into this house, you don't go home from there. You just stay until you're eliminated. And, but they even then didn't tell us that we also would have our phones taken away and not be allowed outside except to go to the studio to film. So it was it was huge.
That's
it was huge. And
so intense. I had
It's kind
no
of Big Brotherish,
idea.
isn't it? And you would have had no frame of reference given that it was the
Right.
first time.
none at all. The only frame of reference was that most of the crew had just come off working on The Biggest Loser. And so they were really surprised when we were like, but we need to talk to our family. It's like, well, if you're on The Biggest Loser, you don't even get letters. It's like, well, I'm not on the diet show. I'm on the eating show.
Hang on a minute.
This is the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
Getting the two confused here.
It's very different now, I have to say. Like in recent series and more recent series, it's changed a lot. But back then, the model was very much let's stress them out as much as we can and get as much sort of on-screen tears and drama as possible.
Right. So how did it even come about? I mean, if they started with that many people, you have, like we've established, this is the first season of it. How did they know you were cooking, or how did you find out about that this was going to be a TV show?
They put out a contestant call, like an ad, just saying, Australian Masterchef, if you love to cook, put your name in the ring. And so I did. My best friend Tash kind of brought that to my attention. She knew I love to cook. I love to cook for my friends and my family. And she said, you've got to go on this. You've got to try out for this. And it was a massive process. The form was huge. And in the end, by this stage, I was working with Mick in a business that we'd started ourselves, an IT business. And I had to take a couple of hours off work just to fill in this form. And forgot all about it. And then I got a call up a few months later just saying, we want you to audition. And that was the start of this wild sort of few months that culminated in what it did.
We loved the show, we loved the show, and we're just amazed at how good home cooks are. Like, I'm a home cook. I've cooked for many years. I would be eliminated that bloody fast. They'd throw like cook with chestnuts and ginger. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. Can I have a chicken wing and some garlic salt? That's all I can do. Like, how do people know how to cook that well? Is it just a passion, I guess?
I think for some people it's passion and practice. For me, it was the fact that by that stage I was 38. I'd been standing at a stove, for years and years, every single night, cooking for my family. And so I had a bit of muscle memory going on. But it's amazing, like so many people say, I could never do that. If I watched it, I would look at it and go, I could never do that. But it's amazing what dark recesses of your brain you're given access to in those really heightened moments. And trust me, those are some pretty heightened moments.
What are the change in your life, the trajectory that your life then took from just doing that 2-hour application? I mean, we all have best intentions and life takes over, momentum happens. You became an overnight sensation basically by completing that show, winning that show. Then you become an author, a celebrated radio host. You open a cooking school. I mean, all these, what a life change for you. How did you cope with it all?
Oh, look, I'm lucky that I was surrounded by some very grounded people, including Mick and my boys, Yep. There was in one sense there was a lot of adjusting to do, obviously. In another sense, things sort of stayed the same. Like, we're in that same house. We still are. My friends are the same. We still do the same stuff. Barbecue on the back deck, still our favourite weekend thing to do. So at the heart of it, all of that important stuff stayed nice and strong and sturdy for me, while all this stuff, career things and opportunities and things were kind of swirling around us. And, the impact was the positive so heavily outweighed any negative that it's just been a blessing. It's been beautiful. And the things that it's brought to my family, I'm grateful every single day for that MasterChef experience.
Yeah, sure. Mick, how was it for you watching the rise of Julie? Did you expect this of her? Know this was going to happen? Or how was it? How was your experience in all of this?
Yeah, it was quite surreal. And if you watch back the finale, I had no idea that they captured it. But when she won, and I was hugging her at the end, I just whispered in her ear, what just happened? And I guess that's when it really smacked me. And I just thought our lives are about to change here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think those first couple of years, like it was like, let's flog this for all it's worth, you know, like this is just going to be a 5-minute thing. And this was part of the trap, I guess, that led to Jules eventually running out of energy.
Yeah.
Was just wanting to make hay while the sun was shining. And yeah.
And the sun kept shining.
Yeah.
And shining and shining, which is wonderful. But yeah, you know, we had to learn how to say no to stuff.
Yeah.
You did allude to, and I'm going to ask you if this is okay to talk about the pressures of life and all those things that you're doing. Are you okay to talk about the anxiety and depression that you went through?
Yeah, of course.
Can you
Of
let us in a bit about that?
Yeah, it was probably towards the end of 2019 when there was just a culmination of stuff. I'd been experiencing anxiety and depression for a while, and overwork. I was brekkie radio plus cooking school, so it was like 2 full-time jobs, and literally 7 days a week, many hours a day, and I just exhaustion and unprocessed trauma from years and years before and all that sort of stuff just kind of all culminated in what, it's old-fashioned language, but nervous breakdown is really just the simplest way to put it, just everything fell in a heap. And it was a really, really terrible time. And it was something I'd resisted for a long time, getting a diagnosis, getting any help. And it just became very clear all of a sudden that I needed it.
And Julie, is that also just because my passion is menopause and supporting menopausal women and understanding the effects of hormones? Were you perimenopausal or menopausal at that time as well?
Look, when I first got a diagnosis of depression, which is years after I first experienced it, but it was the first time I was willing to hear it. I had a female GP and she ran all the blood tests for that because that was her first thought as well, which I understand it's quite often the last thought that occurs, but she was a beautiful GP and she was all across all that. And so she did blood tests and that wasn't the case. So I have had a lot of sort of commentary around, maybe it was menopause. And the reality is that perimenopause and menopause don't help any of that stuff.
Well, that's the thing. It's more like it exaggerates it more than, that's really what happens with
I mean, I've since tested differently for those levels. I mean, I'm 53 now, so that's to be expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, my depression far predates any hormonal changes of that nature.
Gotcha. And there was nothing, the birth of your sons, was there postnatal depression that popped up then?
Yeah. After Joe was born, once again, there was medical professionals trying to give me a diagnosis of postnatal depression. I was told I scored very high on the scale and I basically told them to bugger off and how dare they call me that when I had a beautiful husband and a house to live in and a roof over my head and food on the table and the most perfect, beautiful baby. How dare they suggest that I would be unhappy with that? And that was the really warped thinking I had around that whole mental illness thing, and that, that's a product of my upbringing and my own stubbornness as well.
Yeah, and it's really sort of the way, we've come a long way with mental illness as well, being able to speak about it really well and also understand it so much better. But back postnatal depression was something that was like, it was sort of like a bit of a shame and a secret and women were embarrassed about it because as you said, it's like, I've wanted this baby my whole life. I've now got the baby and I'm just so sad.
So
it
sad.
Never made sense to so many women.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of us, and particularly of a certain generation, but maybe not exclusively, we're raised to muddle depression and sadness with ingratitude,
right.
an inability to count your blessings, and also weakness, an inability to sort of just pick your chin up and put on your best face and whistle a happy tune and fake it till you make it, and all those things that we say to people to just say, I just get over it, essentially. And it's just not that simple. It's just not that simple. Those things help. And, practicing gratitude and counting your blessings and all of that, they're all really useful tools in the toolkit when you're combating depression or anxiety. But they are not the answer. They're not the only answer. You can't just say to somebody, yeah, but look how good you've got it. Why do you feel that way? Look how good you've got it. Because we can always look around and see someone worse off than us. But it doesn't strip us of the actuality that we're not going to feel happy and upbeat all of the time. Yeah. And I think we've just got to forgive ourselves that and allow ourselves to say to other people, which is the hard part, I'm not coping with this. Yeah. I'm not coping with this, and to not be shamed for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Where were you sitting with all this, Mick?
Well, just I guess I was along for the ride, really. Yeah.
How did you support Julie? And did you understand? I'm imagining that you learnt as much as she did.
Definitely. I guess it all came to a head, really, one night when Jules had sort of reached her lowest, and she communicated with me how low she was, and I was a little bit shocked at that. But at that point, realised that I wasn't equipped to support her. I'll stand next to her, but I wasn't equipped to support her or advise her on how to resolve this. And it's at that stage where we got in the car and we drove to the local hospital, presented an emergency, and just said, my wife needs some help.
Yeah.
And then, you sort of put yourself over to the professionals, and we got to learn what the public mental health system was, transitioned into the private, and it's been, we both learnt so much along the way, and this is part of who Julie Goodwin is, and part of the reason I love her is her generosity. So to come out and tell her stories so publicly, and the reason she wants to do that is to help others, to make it an easier road for some people, or just to support other people going through the same.
Absolutely. I mean, Australia was already madly in love with you, Julie, and then I feel like, as you were saying, Mick, to be as open and as vulnerable as you have been with the challenges of what you've been through, I think everyone just went, yep, she's my favourite.
Well, thank you.
Your book, I mean, you've written cookbooks. I imagine that it was probably easier writing a cookbook than it was writing your memoir. The book is called Your Time Starts Now, Food and Fame, Failure and Freedom, the life story of Australia's first Masterchef. It's a great title.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it was much harder than a cookbook.
Yeah.
A cookbook's a very sharey sort of thing to write, because, you cook in your kitchen, you write things down, but then the family gets involved and they critique it, and quite harshly sometimes. But and to test a recipe, I would hand it to one of my kids, and whatever questions they needed to ask me was obviously a gap in the recipe or information that was missing. And so it's really collaborative to write a cookbook. To write a memoir, the opposite had to happen.
Yes.
I had to take myself out of the family home, actually, and go and stay for days and sometimes a couple of weeks at a time in a house by myself, and just really sink right deep into some of this stuff. And it was brutal, and I had to have some very hard conversations with lots of people, but most especially my parents, and eventually my sons. They didn't even know some of the stuff that's
Yeah.
in that book.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a very, very different process. I needed support, not just my beautiful family, but I needed my psychologist had to support me through a lot of that as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything that you discovered about yourself as you were writing the book or at the end of writing the book?
Good question.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big revelations for me was that not necessarily about myself so much as it was about relationships and, especially like relationships with my parents. I used to joke, one day I'll write my life story, but I've got to wait till everyone I know is dead because otherwise how do you write about people? But I had to have these frank discussions with my parents and say, I need you to understand that I'm going to write some stuff that might call into question some of your parenting decisions, but I need you to know that it all comes from love and there's no blame in any of this, and actually that I had underestimated them and that I kind of thought they would be, why would you want to air this dirty laundry? Still that generation. Why would you air your dirty laundry in public? And they were so supportive and so beautiful. I know it's been hard for them, with their peers and all of that to sort of read this level of detail of my life. And they just said, you write whatever you need to write. And I even said to them, I've got the fine, like I certain passages I ran by them. They never asked me to change a word. And I even said, I've got the final draft and I'm about to send it to my publisher, but I want to send it to you first to read. And I want you to tell me if there's anything in there that makes you uncomfortable. And Mum just said, don't send it to me. I'll read it when it's in print.
Wow.
I said,
That's
you know
really
what?
generous.
You complain to me after it's been published. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
But I thought, wow, I underestimated how they would deal with that. So I think, I learnt that about my parents. I learnt that about, I guess what I learned about myself there is that I need to stop underestimating people. I need to be as honest with people as the situation calls for, because, you allow people to sort of step up. And throughout this whole thing, and not just the writing of the book, but the whole falling apart, what I learned about myself, and this is critical, and Ali, I think mums and women especially might resonate with this, is that actually the world turns without you, in terms of you think that you've got to keep all the plates spinning by yourself, and if you stop, then things won't get done, or they won't get done the way you want them, or they won't get done in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is I had those plates spinning so hard and so fast that I fell down and all the plates came crashing down, and I had to step right out of my life. Like I was in and out of hospital for a couple of years, and everyone just steps up,
Yeah.
And what happens is you give the people around you an opportunity to shine and to be the helper and not just the helpee. And you give other people an opportunity. And what you can say is, oh my gosh, nobody ended up starving to death. Nobody ended up in prison. They're all still friends with each other. I actually am not as important as I thought, but I'm more loved than I knew.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes all of that pressure away. Yeah,
Beautifully
that's beautiful.
said too.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that quote. Sometimes things need to fall apart so better things can come together. And
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a beauty. Not mine. I don't know where it comes from, but
That's that
Put your name on
kintsugi ethos,
That's right.
the
Yeah.
Japanese craft.
Oh, correct,
If
yeah.
crockery breaks, you put it back together with gold.
With gold.
And it becomes far stronger and
Love
far
it.
more beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah. And to trust that process, that it just to accept it and allow it, still have your intention of what you want, and yet sometimes you just need to let go.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Oh, you clearly. Hey, look, you guys have been together for a long time, and this is a relationship podcast. For young couples, give us the benefit of your experience here, if you can. For young couples navigating their early marriage, what would you say to them? How would you advise your sons on early relationship?
Look, my mum wrote us a letter on our wedding day, that somehow ended up in our honeymoon suite. I don't know how my mother inserted herself into our honeymoon suite, but she wrote a letter and her advice.
Mums can do that.
Mums can do that.
It's not that surprising.
Wasn't with mine either.
And she said that her advice for a marriage was, if you want something for yourself, do it for your partner. So she said, if you feel like a cup of tea, get up and make your partner a cup of tea. If you feel like you want some space, give your partner some space. And she said, as long as you both are putting each other first, then and you can trust and know that someone has your interests first. And that way you trust each other and you're looking after each other. So I kind of took that on board. And for me, I think my best advice is to just come from a place of knowing that you've got a partner that loves you and wants the same things as you, wants the same things for your life, has the same values. And if you can respect one another, if your disagreements can happen with respect and love at their core, and, even if every conversation where you're about to disagree is, I love you and we have the same goals, but this is what I think we need to discuss. It's just that respect and love always needs to be held at the centre and not anger.
Yeah.
And I think your grandparents had some good advice too, didn't they, Mick?
Yeah. I think someone was taking the video camera around at our wedding reception, and so my mother's parents, Reg and Imelda Henneberry, they were such a beautiful couple. They had 12 kids, massive family, but my grandmother was always just so peaceful. She'd just be sitting in the corner with this, just a little smile on her face, reflecting on all the chaos going on around her. But their advice was never let the sun go down on your troubles.
Don't go to bed fighting. And those two as well, every time they got into a car together, before they put their seatbelts on, they would kiss.
Oh.
And it was just like
sweet gesture.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Should we jump in the shower?
Yeah, let's jump in the shower.
We're ready to jump in the shower. We do something called a 2-minute shower. So we're just going to hit you with some quick fire questions that if you both can answer, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Okay.
What about your relationship makes you feel most grateful?
Just having Jules to share life with, like it's little Delilah raising her, like I know that Julie knows how much love is in my heart for that little girl, because she's the same.
Yeah.
For me, it's just he is just always there to hang on to when I need it, to call when I'm freaking out, and just always just a rock that I can absolutely rely on.
If you could relive one day with each other, what would it be?
Oh God, we've had so many great moments, but one of our best meals ever were in Positano in Italy, just sitting outside at this ridiculous restaurant. There were waiters playing violins and singing. The moon was sort of setting on the Mediterranean Sea. It was like a scene from a really soppy movie. But man, I just remember sitting there thinking, "Who am I? What the hell is going on here?" It was just such a beautiful meal, a beautiful night, and just a memory that I'll cherish forever.
Love it.
I think I would choose a time when we had been going out for not an overly long time, probably a few months, and I always loved the South Coast. I holidayed down there with my family ever since I was a baby, and I knew in my heart, because it was such a big part of my childhood, that whoever I end up with is going to need to love it down here too, because I intend to raise my children having holidays down here. And so Mick joined me down the South Coast at my nan's little holiday cottage, and I'll never forget, it's such a beautiful place. The moon rises over the ocean, and I remember him saying, "Oh, I love it here. I love it here." And I thought, yep, Yep.
Look out,
We're
fella.
on, baby. We're on.
All right. Well, speaking of that, what do you miss when you're not together?
Yeah, definitely just those shared moments. Yeah, and even you don't even realise it happens, I guess. But when I get home from work and Jules is home, we just sort of debrief our days. So I definitely miss that.
When I'm so only recently Mick went away on a boys' weekend away, and I miss the fact that he brings me coffee in bed in the morning. I miss that he'll hand me my towel when I get out of the shower. I miss that I can just lean against him and hug him, and I just feel completely wrapped up and protected. And I miss just chatting, just not the I'm going to phone you and have this conversation, but just those comments that to and fro, in the course of that dance of the everyday.
Yeah, lovely. Last question. One word to describe each other.
Jules definitely I've just got to say generous. Just generous of everything, time, spirit, energy. Yeah.
That's more than one word.
Generosity.
Generous.
Well, the world.
Oh,
My world.
yeah.
That's great.
That's gorgeous.
And Mick, one final question. Do you cook?
Look,
No, that's a no.
you stick to your strengths, right? So I can and I do, but not really.
Yeah.
Well done. Hey, Julie and Mick Goodwin, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been amazing.
Yeah, we've loved having you on. And good
Enjoyed
luck
that.
with the book. It's called Your Time Starts Now. Food and Fame, Failure and Freedom, the life story of Australia's first Masterchef. I'm sure people are just going to love it.
Devouring it,
love it,
yeah.
love it, love it.
Yeah, delicious.
Thank you, guys.
And there they go.
What a beautiful couple. Like that's a great, long-standing, deep connection, isn't it?
Through so much.
Yeah, through so much.
Weathering the time together.
Who would have
and
thought
still
of
a
it?
long way
Yeah,
to go.
as being 18-year-olds, that what you would, where your life journey would have taken you as Julie and Mick Goodwin. Amazing.
And it reminds me of that fridge magnet that you gave me that's still on our fridge of the older couple standing naked in the facing out to sea holding hands.
Yeah.
It's that beautiful photograph.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it
Just
too.
that looking ahead,
Yeah.
facing the water, off we go.
She's got a big bum like me in the picture. It's great.
Who, Julie?
No, the fridge magnet. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. I knew you were going to... Well, I was hoping you weren't going to go there with the shape. I mean, who cares? It's just these
I
two
went there.
amazing people. And I love your bum. And it's not as big as you think it is. You're going to need a new pair of glasses.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well, look,
We'll get you fitted out for Specsavers.
we hope you've learnt a little bit more about the fabulous relationship of Mick and Julie Goodwin, and grab her book. I'm sure it's fantastic.
We'll catch up with you next time.
Bye for now.